that we have to understand that everything that happens to us in our lives happens because it's God's will. Welcome everybody to our weekly Wednesday night shiur, which is a shiur specifically on the Parashat, dedicated to learning the holy words and the inspiring words of the Zera Shimshon. The Zera Shimshon, again, Rabbi Shimshon Haim Nachmani, Zichuto Yagen Alenu, Amen. May his merit be upon all of us for studying his special insights to the Torah, and may we have a special refuah shlema for a dear friend of ours, which is Israel Yaakov ben Rivka. B'ezrat Hashem HaKadosh Baruch Hu will get him out of the ICU very quick and get him back to himself in a speedy recovery, along with all of the in need of recovery of all Bnei Israel. Amen. This week, just to recap a little bit what happened last week. Last week we had that whole amazing experience and that whole episode of Yaakov. Please turn cell phones on silent. Of Yaakov going and getting the brachot instead of Esav, and Rivka helping, which was very, very interesting, and we spoke about that. And now his mother convinces his father, Rivka now convinces Yitzhak, let's send our son to my brother's house. I'm not so fond of the girls that are around town. Look at Esav and the wives that he's married. I'm not so fond of these girls. I want something better for Yaakov. So, as every woman knows how to, she convinced her husband and got it her way. And finally, Yaakov is set and he's en route. Where is he going to? He's going to his uncle's house. He's going to Lavan's house. And does anyone remember how old Yaakov was at this moment? He was at 63. He's old. He's an older man already. 63 years old. He's single, and he's on his way to go find his wife. Now, the Torah tells us something interesting, that very soon after he leaves, and I'll read you the verse says, Vayifga bamakom hahu. He gets to a certain place, and Vayifga is not just he's arrived somewhere. However, he's encountered this place. It's kind of like, it stops him. To that we know that we have different interpretations what that means. We have Rashi's interpretation You're good? You're good? Sit right here, right here. You had 5,000 people see you. Rashi tells us that Vayifga bamakom hahu means that the place that he got to did not have a specific name. When I tell you got to a certain place, I'm not going to tell you what the place is. It's this junction, it's this highway, it's this exit. It's called makom. Why is it called makom? It's a great question. And he tells us, based on the Midrash, Rashi tells us, that the only other place that we've seen so far that's been called makom, the place, was Har Moriah. Har Moriah, the place where Yitzhak himself was brought to be as if slaughtered. And then what happened? We know what happened. Yaakov now gets to that place, Hamakom, to that place, and he stopped. He stopped abruptly. We know, it gets dark, it's nighttime right away, and he goes to sleep. And then it says, Vayikach me'avnei hamakom vayasem rashotav. He takes stones. Now, you want to call it luck. I don't like to call it luck, but he takes 12 stones. He takes them, he puts them around his head to go to sleep, to protect himself. He made some type of fortress. And as we know, the Midrash tells us all the stones are fighting. I want to be the pillow of the tzaddik. No, I want to be the pillow of the tzaddik. And then what HaKadosh Baruch Hu does, He merges all of those stones together to be one stone, one pillow, that they all have the merit to do so. Next thing that happens is that from there he goes to the next destination. Now he was set to go first to Lavan's house, but he took a little detour. And this was a long detour. It was 14 years of a detour. Wow. The Torah teaches us that this was the last time Yaakov slept for the next 14 years. Wow. This sleep that he had, this revelation with the dream and the angels and going up and down the ladders, this was his last sleep for 14 years. Okay, some of us go 14 hours or 24 hours without sleeping. We can't even continue. 14 years. Where did he go? He went to the yeshiva of Shem ve'ever. He went to the source where his father and his grandfather delved deep into the understanding and the wisdom of the creation of the world and of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He stops there for 14 years. He goes 14 years, 24/7, not sleeping, just learning. It's amazing. That's why he was who he was. So he's 63, who's good at math, plus another 14, he's 77. He meets his future father-in-law at that time. But before we go there, the Zera Shimshon asks an amazing, very interesting question. He says there's another midrash that tells us that the terminology of Vayifga b'makom doesn't merely mean that Yaakov got to a certain place. Rather, the midrash is in the Yalkut Shimoni, tells us that the world came up as a wall to hold Yaakov back, to pause him in his journey. Vayifga b'makom ahu. Pauses him, stops him. The terminology of the midrash is a wall, as if a wall came up and held him back in his journey. He asks, why would the world, why would the universe, why would the forces of nature ever want to stop Yaakov back from going to meet his father-in-law, or go his uncle, which becomes his father-in-law, doing what his mother Rivka told him to do, and he's going to go to yeshiva on the way 14 years. Why would the world want to stop Yaakov from doing such an amazing thing? So listen to what he answers. He answers us with another Mamar Chazal, the Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer. Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer says that what God did was He took the stone that unified itself to become one from all the other different pieces, unified itself to become one, and God, listen to this, God takes that stone and kivyachol, as if with God's right leg, He takes that stone and He plunges it deep into the foundation of the world, strengthening the foundations of the world with that very stone. Now obviously it's talking somewhat on a physical level, because we're talking about a stone, and we're talking about the world, but this obviously means much greater in a spiritual way. The Zera Shimshon says that until that day, of course the world was created in how many days? A good 6 days. 6 days the world was created. However, the world was still unstable. The world wasn't as strong as it was meant to be. So listen to this. God took that stone, and He dug it deep into the core of the world. Again, we're talking massive concepts. He took that stone and He dug it and He stuck it into the core of this world to strengthen the very foundation of the world, that humanity that we live on. And this is why the world stops, Zera Shimshon says. This is why the world stopped Yaakov in his path. Yaakov, stop. Before you continue, we need to finally strengthen the world's foundation. We need this rock. We need you. So the Zera Shimshon, that spot, yes, obviously, it's a very important spot. But now the Zera Shimshon asks, one second. Why at this point? Okay, we can ask, why wasn't it Abraham? Why wasn't it Isaac? And why was it specifically Yaakov that was the one to strengthen the foundation of the world? That we could answer. We could answer that Abraham unfortunately had one impure child, and Yitzhak as well had one imperfect child. But Yaakov had 10 out of 10, meaning he had 100% perfect score on each and every one of his 12 children. They were all tzaddikim gemurim. If anyone feels or thinks that one of the tribes, even if you want to consider Yehuda or any of the tribes, even Levi and Shimon, any of them, that they were not tzaddikim gemurim, it's a mistake. They were all righteous, perfect individuals. So we have to figure out and understand how that is. But Yaakov was the complete one. Okay, so we now understood how come Yaakov deserves to be the one to strengthen the foundation. But why now? Why when he's 63? Maybe when he's 77. Maybe when he gets married at 84. Why specifically at this moment does he need to strengthen, or the world stops him in order to strengthen the foundations? So this was before Yeshiva even. Look at this. The Zera Shimshon answers. He says Yaakov now is on a mission. His mission is to find a wife. Is that the end of his mission? No, more than that. Learning Torah, like we've explained even this morning, is for a purpose. He was learning the Torah in order to so what was his goal? His goal was to find a wife, but to establish the Jewish people. Establish the 12 tribes. To get married, have the 12 sons, and now finally establish the Jewish people as it was meant to be. That Abraham was not chosen to do or given that task, and even Yitzhak, it was specifically for Yaakov. So what does the Zera Shimshon say? He says the world till then was havoc. The world till then was not the way it was intended ideally to be. There were some hiccups along the way. Adam had a hiccup. Noach's generation, even Noach himself, had a hiccup. It was the return to the realization of God. However, at this moment, it was the moment of truth. At this moment, it was the moment when the Jewish people are going to be formed. And the foundation of the Jewish people needs to stand on a strong foundation of the physical, even the physical, obviously spiritual world that we live in. So now, on his embarkment, the 63 years old Yaakov was already a Talmid Chacham. He was wise. He was learning with Avraham. He was learning with Yitzhak. He knew his stuff. Now he was going into a different mode of his life. He was going into the mode of preparation for the onset and the coming of the 12 tribes. He needed 14 years, if you would like to say it in maybe a more lax term, of meditation, of deepening his knowledge and understanding of the creation of God, right before getting into the whole chapter of his life of marrying his wife and wives and having the 12 tribes. At this moment, the Zera Shimshon says, was the moment to strengthen the world. Because if the purpose of the world would come to the world, right, the 12 tribes would come to the world before the world has its foundation, it would have, he says this, it would have collapsed. Which is fascinating. So the lesson I took from this, and I think it's very simple. This is simple whether you are a psychologist or you enjoy psychology. This is simple whether you're an architect or an engineer. This is simple whether you're a businessman. This is simple whether you're a parent or any other vocation or thing that you're into. That the foundations are the most important. With a loose and unstable foundation, anything built on top of that will always be unstable. Now, there's two things I want to say. I'll say one thing short and then I'll get more into that concept. The short thing is we do see from here that even though when something's built, there is a way to strengthen a foundation. We're never allowed to give up, no matter what it is. Obviously in physical realms, but more important in spiritual and emotional realms. That even when something seems to be broken and you finally pinpointed the issue, and the issue is that it's coming from the foundation, from the very core of this very topic, that's fine. There's a way to strengthen it. We see this is over 2,000 years after the world was created, that there was a way to strengthen the foundation of the world. It's never too late. But now, starting from the beginning, and this is what I really wanted to talk about, starting from the beginning, what does it mean to build a strong foundation? When it comes to a building, it's very easy for us to understand. You pour the concrete, the cement, you get your inspection done, you plan on how many floors you want to build. That's quite simple. But consider this type of foundation. The beginning of a new relationship, and this is any type of relationship. This is a family relationship, this is a relationship for marriage, this is a relationship, a new friendship. This is a teacher-student relationship, any type of, a neighbor relationship. What is gonna be the foundation that this relationship is built on? Is it gonna be built on lust and desire and selfishness? Is it gonna be built on respect, nobility, honoring one another? What are you gonna choose to build this relationship on? As soon as, and I don't care what anyone says, as soon as you cross a line, if you cross that red line, it's crossed. You've crossed it, you'll cross it again, and the other side will also cross it. You've opened up the relationship to things where you might have not wanted it to ever get to. And that's all based on the foundation of what you set for that relationship. Parents and children. When it comes to the relationship between a parent and a child, the foundation of that relationship is the most important. Now, the foundation, in my humble opinion, always has the ingredient of love in it. And we always hope for that, but that's a fact. But what about the rules that are set down to respect one another? And now I'm speaking to the parents, I'm not speaking to the children. But even as parents, how do we respect our children? How do we respect them for their choices, even though they may not be ours? How do we respect them for the way they want to live their life, for the things that they like to do? Are we just going to berate them, insult them, punish them, force them in a different direction? Or are we going to respect the facts of life and what they want to do and encourage them and channel them to be the best people they can possibly be? It's very hard. Respecting our children, or I'll say an opposite way, disrespecting our children is when we yell at them. This is a rule, this is proven in psychology. The only reason why a person has to raise their voice is because they want to prove their point stronger, or I'll say better. They feel their point is not getting pushed strongly across, so they want to put more volume into it or emotion into it. However, this is also proven when it comes to yelling. When a person is not 100% convinced that they are right, then they will yell. If you know you're right, there's no need to raise your voice. What you're gonna say is gonna be heard. I'm not looking at anybody. I'm speaking to myself. But if you need to raise your voice to get your point across, it's not 100% emet. You need to use something else to get the point across. You need to penetrate and push that concept further, that if you were really 100% truth, or you were saying a very good claim or logic, you could say it as quiet as this, and it would go right into that person's ears and heart and penetrate. And that's our fault. That's our disrespect. That's our foundation that we're chipping away at with any relationship, to our children, to our parents, to our friends. We don't need to do that. We need to preserve foundations and strengthen foundations. Let's look at another aspect of the foundation. The foundation of a business is equally important. Not only in the way you build the business, which obviously, as we all know, determines for the most part its longevity and its success, but even the relationships in that business. There are many businesses I walk into, and you have 4-letter words and worse getting thrown across the room like no one's business. That's a lack of disrespect. Sorry, that's a lack of respect. That's a lack of honor. I'll mention my father. My father runs a nice size firm. He has over 100 people working in his firm. And never have I heard anybody in my father's office use foul language. It has never happened. Why? And you're not going to be surprised. There's one reason and one reason only. Because you'll never hear a foul word from my father's mouth. If the boss leads by example, everyone will follow through. But as soon as the foundation, as soon as the CEO, as soon as the founder, as soon as you start cutting corners, as soon as you start chipping away at the foundation and at the basic core rules of successful human relationships, you're ruining it for everyone else. You set the tone. You set the tone in your home. You set the tone in your office. You set the tone in your relationships. Sometimes people come, and it could be at the beginning of a relationship, and they come and they try, and I'm sure we've all seen this, they try to either verbally or even physically put you in the place they want you to be in. I'm sure we all understand what we mean. Sometimes it's by someone older than you, or sometimes by someone that's more successful than you, and they want to kind of put you in their pocket. So they shake your hand a certain way. They tap your back a certain way. They say certain things which are from the beginning of that relationship ruining the foundation for success. And then we have a choice. We have a choice to see if that's whether it's the first time or if it's sometimes the second time, to either cut that relationship out of our lives, which I'm not saying is the best idea, or, as hard as this sounds, set the person straight. Don't let them touch you that way. Don't let them talk to you that way. Be respectful, however firm. That's a foundation. That's an important foundation for the continuation of that relationship. Let's move on to the next topic of the Zera Shimshon. So, he spends, from 63, he spends 14 years in the Yeshiva of Shem Ve'ever. He continues on, and for the first time in his life, he sets eyes upon his cousin Rachel. Rachel, his cousin, and from the moment that he saw her and she saw him, they knew that they were meant for each other. It was immediate. It was against the concept of love at first sight, meaning we don't believe love at first sight. Because love at first sight means you're intrigued and you're into the way the other person looks most of the time, and looks are very deceiving. For Yaakov, it was love at first sight, and for Rachel as well, but not on a physical level. It was on a spiritual level, and that's obvious. We're talking about our patriarch and matriarch. They met each other, and then Yaakov strikes a deal with his uncle. And he says, I'll work for you for 7 years, and then you give me your daughter Rachel as my wife. So, the Zera Shimshon doesn't ask this, but this is an obvious question that we could all ask. Why did Yaakov have to work for his wife and Yitzhak didn't? Yitzhak came the same day Eliezer came to meet Betuel and Lavan. We're going to take your daughter and your sister. We're going to take her right away. Why did he need to wait for 7 years? Very good. And the answer is quite obvious, just if you understand the narrative of this chapter of the marrying. When Yaakov came, Lavan got excited. This rich family, they're coming for another one. I remember last time the wealth that they left us to take my sister, by now they must be even wealthier and I'm going to get as much if not more. He comes and he hugs Yaakov. Come, my nephew, anything you want. He comes and he sees that he doesn't have any bags with him. He has no camels. He's very different than that slave that came decades ago. Okay, he probably came with something really expensive and he's hiding it. He didn't want to show like he's traveling. So he hugs him and he starts feeling all his pockets. He sees nothing there. It must be so special, he's hiding it in his mouth. So he gives him a kiss. I don't want to explain what type of kiss. It's different opinions what type of kiss. But he's kissing him and he's filling up his cheeks. Where's that jewel? He sees nothing. Listen, no. You want my daughter? You will pay for my daughter. And so Yaakov said, I have nothing. And he explained to him, Eliphaz, Esav's son, took. We know the story. So now he had to set out 7 years to work for Rachel. Comes the 7th year anniversary, and Yaakov is 84. He's 84, he's coming to his very own wedding. Excited, can you imagine living 7 years in the same location as the woman you know you're gonna marry, and that she knows is gonna marry you? And they didn't see each other from that day. From that first day until the day of their wedding, they did not see or speak to each other.
14 years.
7 years. 7 years. Comes the 7th year anniversary, and he's coming to his wedding. Tuxedo, bow tie, top hat, cane, shiny shoes. He comes to the wedding, and he marries who he thought was Rachel, and that trickster, sly, good-for-nothing Lavan, who was his very own uncle, swapped Rachel and Leah. Wakes up the next morning and realizes that it's Leah and not Rachel. He goes to his father-in-law and says, how could you have done that to me? You're so horrible. You're so sly. Why would you do that to me? And he tells him, listen, in our city, you want to know what our tradition is? The younger daughter cannot get married married first. Cannot get married before the older one. Leah was older than Rachel. I couldn't help but fulfill our tradition, our customs. Yaakov said, no problem. Look at the midot. He says, fine. I'll work another 7 years for Rachel. I think he asked. Well, whether he asked or either way. He works another. Yeah, he worked. Yeah. I think like I said.
Is voluntary or is that?
Yeah, I think voluntary.
Really?
But that was...
One thing, let's not interrupt. 7, he says, I'll work another 7 years for Rachel. However, he was smart. He says, I'm no friar, as we say in Hebrew. In a week from now, I'm marrying Rachel. He gave the Sheva Brachot, the 7 days to Leah. Then he married Rachel right away after. 7 days later. And finally there was that unification. Now listen to this. So he's 84 now. The Zera Shimshon, he analyzes this pasuk. The pasuk tells us that God sees that Leah was unloved and hated by Jacob. And therefore, I'll read it to you. Vayar Hashem ki sinua Leah vayiftach et rachma v'Rachel akara. God sees that she's unloved, Leah, opens her womb, lets her conceive, and leaves Rachel barren. Continuing, what happens? Leah has her first son, Reuven. Has her second son, Shimon. Third son, Levi. Fourth son, Yehuda. Now she has 4 sons. The Torah tells us God closes her womb. Baraka. 4 sons, you'll start with that. We know she'll have another 2, but you start with that. And Rachel is still barren. Look what Rachel does. Vatere Rachel ki lo yaleda liYaakov. Rachel sees that she has not given birth. She has not provided Yaakov with any children yet. Vatekane Rachel be'achota. Rachel becomes jealous of her sister Leah. Vatomer el Yaakov. She goes over and approaches her husband Jacob. This has been at least 4 years of marriage. Let's just say a year a kid. 4 years of marriage. She approaches her husband Jacob. Havali banim. Give me children. Give me children. Give me children. Vim ayin meta anochi. If you don't, I'll be as if I'm considered dead. The Zera Shimshon asks 3 prominent questions. He says firstly, what does it mean? And what's the correlation between Leah being unloved and that God allows her to conceive? What does one have to do with another? Whether a person is loved or unloved by their husband, should that mean that she's able to conceive or not? Opposite, I would say that if a wife is unloved to her husband, it's a blessing if she doesn't conceive. That means if, God forbid, there'd need to be a divorce, at least there's no baggage. But here, she's unloved, and because she's unloved, she gets pregnant. Which means Rachel was loved and she didn't get pregnant. What's the Zera Shimshon says, what does that mean? He asks number 2, he says, can we imagine that Rachel, our matriarch, was jealous of her sister? Could we imagine that there was jealousy from a matriarch, from her to her own sister? That would be a little immature of her, at least to say. The third question he asks is, if we look at the pasuk, it says, Rachel sees that she did not give birth for Jacob. It could have just said that she did not give birth. Why does it say that she did not give birth for Jacob? Obviously, it's her only husband. These are the 3 questions of Zera Shimshon. The Zera Shimshon answers with a very famous Talmud. The Talmud says and asks, why were the matriarchs all barren? Why could they not conceive? The Talmud answers, because God loves the prayers of tzaddikim and tzadkaniyot. He loves the prayers of righteous people. That means He puts people in hard situations. He puts people He loves. He puts people who fulfill His will in difficult situations just to have them call out and cry to Him. So the matriarchs, the foundation, going back to the foundation of our nation, all were held back from giving birth. To some it was many decades, such as Sarah. To Rivka it was only 20 years. To Rachel it was less. But nevertheless, they were all, even Leah was barren because God had to open her womb. That means she was barren before that. So all 4 of our matriarchs were barren. And the Talmud tells us, you know why? Because God loves their prayers. God loves the prayers of the righteous. With that, the Zera Shimshon says, Leah was barren, but she was unloved. If she was unloved to her husband, that means her husband would not pray for her to have kids. And God would not leave her to be doomed, not leave her barren for no reason, because the reason is for prayers. But if He's not going to pray for her, so there's no reason to leave her barren. And therefore, that's why, because she was unloved, that's his answer for the first question, because she was unloved, the Zera Shimshon says, God opens her womb because there was not going to be anyone that was going to pray for her to have children. So right away, she becomes pregnant. 1, 2, 3, 4 times right away. Continues. So what was Yaakov thinking? Why didn't Yaakov, for 4 years, pray for Rachel to have children? Yaakov was of the opinion that really, the matriarchs did not all have to be barren. There was a specific reason for each one. Sarah needed to be barren, the Zera Shimshon explains, because she needed to change from the previous identity of Sarai to become Sarah. Once she became Sarah, as we see in Parashat, the Parashat right away, Parashat Lech Lecha, Vayera, she becomes pregnant. Rivka had to wait 20 years to become pregnant because we would never want anyone to think that the blessing that she became pregnant was that of her brother, of her father and her brother, who were idol worshippers, good for nothings, tricksters, evil people, that their blessing is what gave her to have a child. So that's why she had to wait some time. But Leah and Rachel, Yaakov was like, there's no reason they need to be barren. And the proof is, Leah gets pregnant right away. She's not barren, he understands. And therefore, he felt no need to pray for his wife, Rachel. And that's when Rachel comes over to him and says, pray for me. Until you pray for me, it's not gonna happen. I'm barren. My womb is closed. Please, pray for me. That's why the pasuk says, Vatere Rachel ki lo yaleda leYaakov. She has not been giving birth on the account of Yaakov, because of Yaakov, to Yaakov, leYaakov. And therefore she comes and says, pray for me now. Now it is the time. We see what's going on over here. And how do we answer that she's jealous of her sister? That's immature. Jealousy is a horrible trait. Already the commentaries tell us that she was jealous of her sister's deeds. She said to herself, if my sister and I, who are quite similar, grew up in the same crooked house, and we are as righteous as we possibly can be, both get married within a week, and she has 4 children and I have none. She's saying there must be a reason. The reason is that her deeds are greater than mine. So she was jealous of her spiritual achievements and her capabilities and the things that she actually did in the name of God. It's kinat sofrim, exactly as the Mishnah in Masechet Avot in Pirkei Avot tells us, that kinat sofrim marbe chokhmah, jealousy of wisdom, jealousy from scholar to another, promotes more wisdom. It's kind of like the misconception of, if someone else opens a similar business to you, you're doomed. Opposite! Now you're gonna do better. Now you're gonna try harder. Competition is good. If there's no competition, then there's a monopoly, and then people get taken advantage of. So Rachel looks at her sister and says, I'm jealous of her good deeds. She's doing something better than me. I gotta fix myself. So she starts introspection, and she realizes, however, her husband's not praying for her. So she asks her husband to pray for her. There are many lessons we can draw from this amazing Hidush that Zera Shimshon gives us. There's something I drew out. There's something I thought of. And this is the concept of the world is fair. Or I'll say better, God is fair. God saw that Leah was not going to be prayed for, that she was unloved. God went against that nature of that whole concept of prayer. That was why he instituted the matriarchs to be barren, and changed that. Because he was not going to leave her alone. In life, there are people who we might classify and deem as disregarded, discounted, disqualified, they're a nobody. First of all, who are we to do that? We don't know what other people do. We don't know how great other people can possibly be. But I'll go deeper than that. If I've had someone come to me, more than one person and more than one time come to me and said, I feel skipped over. What does that mean? I feel God skips over me. He's showering everyone with blessing and he leaves me out. He's showering everyone with health, children, good things in their life, and he's passing over me. A person could never think so. A person could never discount or disqualify themselves. A person has to understand that everything that happens in our lives to us is calculated. Every hard thing, every struggle, every good thing that we do, every success, everything that happens to us, it's all ordained specifically from God. God knows. God knows the good that we did. God knows the not good that we did. He has it all calculated. He's sharing the pie with everybody according to what they deserve. Better than that, He knows what's gonna be. He doesn't want to set us up for failure. So we can never ever look at ourselves or our lives, and obviously others, and say God has skipped over us. God has skipped over me. God has skipped over him. Never. There is a time and place, as we also learn in Masechet Avot, there's a time and place for everybody. Right now that person might look like he's on the bottom of the food chain. Stuff can change. Stuff will change. Look at everybody and look and say that what they have and what I have is exactly the way God wants it to be. It's a very powerful lesson. And to that, the story is brought down. A beautiful story about speaking about blessing children and having children. There was a family who for 8 years did not have children. That's a long time. And finally, they got a hold of the book of Zera Shimshon. It was given to them and said, learn it, and hopefully all of the promises that the author of the book, as we all know of, will come on you. You'll be blessed with children. And so the man opened it up, and he opened up to, let me remind myself, he opened up to the place in the Zera Shimshon where he speaks about in Devarim, about the concept of benching, as he says here, benching your children, blessing your children. Give your children blessing. So he read and he was interested, and he was he found it as a providence that he opened up to that page that had to do with children. And he said, you know what? I'll take upon myself every night for a couple moments before I go to sleep to read from this Sefer, to read from this book. And so it was. 12 months later, on the same week that he received the book, his wife had a child. 8 years not having children. Chance, luck, fluke, God, who knows? All we know is that a promise was made, and that we read about these stories, we see these stories, we'll hopefully live through these miracles. But the most beautiful part about this is look at this rich content that we have over here. Look at these powerful lessons that we're able to take out from the wisdom of this Chacham. So as a recap, we learned about foundations. We learned about foundations in relationships. We learned about foundations in business. We learned about the foundation of this world that was strengthened by Yaakov at the right time before the onset and the coming of his 12 children and the formation of the Jewish nation. And then we learned about never discounting oneself, never asking and questioning, why does this happen to me? Why did this not happen to me? God knows. God saw Leah. He knew that there would have been no way for her to have children. No one would have prayed for her. And he opened her womb right there and then. May God bless us. May whoever is still of age, our wives' wombs be open and have many healthy, happy children. And may our foundations be strong, and we decide how strong the foundations are. We are the ones who decide those relationships. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu bless us in the merit of Rabbi Shimshon Haim Nachmani. May all of us, our families and ourselves be blessed, and may we, B'ezrat Hashem, see the coming of the Mashiach. Amen. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen ve'amen.